It's Sunday afternoon. You're staying in your driveway with your phone balanced on the hood of your car, staring at your solar app. Hey, 42 kilowatt hours today. Best production day you've had, and your utility is paying you next to nothing for it. Actually, for 2 hours in the early afternoon, they did not want that electricity at all. The app, it shows a flat line. You've been curtailed. Not because your panels broke or your inverter went down, or there's something wrong with the setup. It's because the grid looked at all the clean energy that's come flooding in at once and said, thanks, but no thanks. Your neighbor, 2 doors down, he installed a battery in his garage last spring. He's not staring at a flat line. He is watching that same sunlight get stored at 2 in the afternoon, and then he sells it back at 7 at night, when the grid is actually begging for it. Same sun, same panels, basically same setup, but he's getting a check and you're getting a shrug. That gap between the guy giving his power away for free and the guy getting paid for it is the entire story of what is happening to the American grid right now. We call it Grid 2.0. And if you understand it before your neighbors do, it's not just an energy story. It's a career and bank account story. So let's get into it. For the last 15 years, the entire renewable energy playbook has been add as many clean kilowatt hours as you can. Solar tax credit, wind tax credit, net metering, the whole industry, myself included, we spent a decade screaming, build, 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 and it's worked. We built so much, so fast, that in places like California, Texas, Arizona, we've actually broken the shape of the demand curve. Utility nerds, we call it the duck curve. Picture a graph of the grid demand over 24 hours. In the late morning, as millions of rooftop and utility scale solar panels ramp up, net demand on the grid plunges. That's the duck's fat belly. Then right around 5 or 6 p.m., the sun starts dropping just as everyone gets home, turns on the AC, starts dinner, and plugs in the car. Demand spikes almost straight up. That's the duck's neck. We built an entire clean energy system optimized to solve one problem, not enough power. And doing so created a brand new one. Too much power at exactly the wrong time of day, and not nearly enough at the time that we actually need it. That belly is now so deep in some regions that grid operators are curtailing or literally throwing away gigawatt hours of clean solar in the early afternoon because there's nowhere for it to go. And that evening neck, it is so steep, it is still the most expensive, most fossil fuel dependent hour of the entire day, because that's when gas peaker plants need to fire up to save the day. And here's the myth that I am going to bust right now, because you'll hear it from every talking head who wants an excuse to slow walk the clean energy transition. See, solar is unreliable. That is why we have this curve. Completely wrong. Solar is doing exactly what we asked it to do. It's showing up predictably every single day at massive scale. The duck curve, it is not a solar failure. It is a timing failure. And timing failures, they have a very specific, very buildable solution. Making that duck fly means flattening the belly and the neck, moving that free, abundant midday sun into the evening peak where it's actually needed. And the tool that does that job is boring, unglamorous, and suddenly the most valuable asset class in energy, a battery. So here's where it gets interesting for your wallet. For years, incentive programs paid you for how much clean energy you produced. Full stop. Produce a kilowatt hour, you get a credit, regardless of when. That model, it built us a duck curve. Now states are quietly, or in California's case, loudly rewriting the rules to pay you for when you deliver power, not just how much. California blew up its old net metering program and replaced it with export tariffs that pay a fraction of the old rate for power sent to the grid at noon and meaningfully more for power exported during that evening crunch. That single policy shift is why battery attachment rates on new California solar installations have gone from an afterthought to the absolute default. The state's self-generation incentive program is paying homeowners up to $1,000 per kilowatt hour of battery capacity in high fire risk, low income areas specifically to get storage installed and shift power into that evening window. In March of this year, California's battery fleet pushed out more than 12 gigawatts during peak evening demand. Friends, that's not a rounding error. That is several large nuclear plants worth of power that used to come from gas. Texas is doing it differently. No mandate, pure market signal. ERCOT lets battery operators stack revenue from energy arbitrage and grid services. And the market pays so well for well-timed discharge that Texas added gigawatts of storage in 2025 without a single state rebate program. Different politics, but the same physics. Pay for timing, and storage shows up. This is the first pillar of Grid 2.0. Incentives are shifting from how much clean power did you make to did you deliver it when the grid actually needed it. That is a fundamentally different and, frankly, more honest energy economy. And it rewards exactly the kind of practical, hands-on thinking that got you into the space in the first place and why you're listening to me. Now, here's the part that should make you absolutely furious because it's the single biggest bottleneck standing between us and a decarbonized grid. And almost nobody outside the industry knows it exists. According to Lawrence Berkeley National Lab's latest data, there's now more than 2,000 gigawatts of solar, wind, and battery storage sitting in interconnection queues across this country waiting for permission to connect to the grid. 2,000 gigawatts. For context, the entire installed generating capacity of the United States, every single power plant we have, is a little over 1,200 gigawatts. We have nearly double our current grid sitting in the waiting room. Why? Because before a new project can plug into a utility or regional grid, the operator has to run a series of studies, a group study, an area study, sometimes a full system impact study, to figure out whether that one new solar farm or battery plant is going to overload a substation or transmission line 3 counties away. These studies, they are not quick, to say the least, and they certainly are not cheap. We are talking hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars per project and timelines that regularly stretch past 2, 3, sometimes 5 years or into the decade just to get a yes or no and how much it's going to cost. The median time frame from initial request to actually operating is now over 5 years. 5 years. And here's the gut punch. Of everything that entered those queues between 2000 and 2020, only about 13% has actually made it to commercial operation. Roughly 3/4 gave up and withdrew. Think about that. 3 out of every 4 clean energy projects that tried to get in, that spent money finding a host, developing a project, they tried to get in, but they simply died in paperwork. Not because the technology failed, not because the economics were failing, because the interconnection process, well, it's a Cold War era bureaucratic pipe trying to process a 21st century flood of applications. This is not a partisan problem. This is not a renewables or unreliable problem. This is a plumbing problem. A single project developer can spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on a group site, get in line behind hundreds of other projects sharing the same substation, wait 5 years for an answer, and they get told the answer is yes, but only if your project personally pays for $11 million transmission upgrade 20 miles away. Then you multiply that by tens of thousands of projects and you understand why the queue is basically a graveyard. And plumbing problems get fixed by people who understand the pipes and the pressure, which is exactly the skill set this industry is desperate to hire right now. So how do you unclog 2,000 gigawatts of pipe? Well, you don't just build more pipe, although we're doing that too. The Department of Energy, they just opened up close to $2 billion this year for transmission, reconductoring, and advanced grid technology. You also make the existing pipe smarter. And that's where the two concepts you're going to hear constantly over the next 5 years come in. And that is AMI and flexible interconnection. AMI stands for Advanced Metering Infrastructure. the smart meter revolution. Old meters, they were dumb. Someone walked down the street once a month and read a dial. AMI meters, they talk. They report usage in near real time in both directions. So a utility can actually see block by block where power is flowing, where it's congested, and where there's headroom. You cannot run a grid full of rooftop solar batteries and EVs without knowing what is happening at the edge of the network in real time. AMI is the nervous system that makes everything in this episode possible. Flexible interconnection is the other path. Today, when a new solar or battery project wants to connect, the utility studies the absolute worst case scenario. Max output at the worst possible time on the most congested day of the year. And if that particular scenario breaks something, the project gets rejected or hit with a massive multi-million-dollar upgrade bill. Flexible interconnection flips that. Instead of designing for the worst, say, 5 years over the course of a decade, the new project agrees to be curtailed automatically and briefly during those very rare constrained moments in exchange for connecting now instead of in 5 years. Early pilots in New York and Connecticut are showing that actual curtailment is way lower than the doom and gloom worst case studies predicted. You give up a sliver of revenue in exchange for skipping the back of the 2,000 gigawatt line. That trade is about to become the default way new clean energy gets built in this country. Now, let's talk about the part of this that's going to change how you personally think about money. That is vehicle to grid, V2G, or more broadly, V2X, vehicle to everything. Here's the old mental model. You own an EV. You plug it in. You pay for electricity. Full stop. End of relationship. Here's the new one. In 2026, roughly 60% of new EV models sold support bidirectional charging, meaning your car's battery, it can push power back out, not just take it in. Pilot programs in California, the UK, Japan, and the Netherlands are already paying EV owners real money. PG&E's residential V2X pilot is running somewhere between $300 and $800 a year, depending on usage, just for letting the grid draw down your battery during peak hours and top it back up when power is cheap or negative cost. And think about why that math works. If you're commuting 20 miles a day, you do not need an 80% charged battery sitting in your garage overnight. You need maybe 15 or 20% of that battery tomorrow. So why is the other 60% just sitting there, doing nothing, depreciating? Sell it. Let the grid buy that spare capacity when solar is flooding the system and prices go to zero or even negative. Yeah, negative. Utilities have literally paid to get rid of excess afternoon power. And then let the grid buy it back from you again tonight at 7 p.m. when it's worth real money. European studies on early V2G adopters are already showing owners not just charging for free, but they're pocketing real arbitrage profit on top of it. This is the shift. The question stops being, hey, how much does it cost to run your EV? It starts being, how much did my EV pay me this month? It doesn't stop with the car. Your water heater, it's a battery too. It's a thermal one. Set it along with your dishwasher, your dryer, your pool pump to run during the hours electricity is the cheapest or literally free, and you've just turned your entire house into a grid participant instead of just a grid customer. None of this happens without new companies, new communication protocols between your car, your charger, your meter, your utility, and entirely new markets to let it all of that infrastructure talk to each other and then settle payments automatically. Right now, a bidirectional charger, it costs several $1000s more than a standard one. And most of that gap is because these communication standards and certifications are still being built in real time. That premium is going to collapse the same way solar inverter prices collapse, solar panel pricing collapse, and battery pricing collapse once the volume shows up. This is not a someday story. That infrastructure is being built right now by real companies, hiring real people. And that, friends, that is the opportunity hiding inside all of this. Every piece I just described, interconnection studies, flexible interconnection, engineering, AMI data systems, battery dispatch software, EV to grid aggregation platforms. They need people who understand both the electrons and the software. Interconnection engineers, DER aggregation analysts, grid modernization program managers, V2G system integrators. These are not jobs that existed a decade ago. To most of them, they do not require a PhD. They require someone willing to learn the plumbing. Utilities, grid software startups, and EV manufacturers are all hiring for these roles right now. And they're often paying six figures. And most of the people getting hired, they are not career utility lifers. They are people coming from IT, from operations, from customer-facing roles who just decided to learn the domain. The music industry, it didn't go from CDs to streaming because the songs changed. It changed because someone built the pipes and the payment rails. Electricity is having that exact moment right now, and the pipes are being built by people who are choosing this industry over some cubicle that they're sitting in today. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, geez, that sounds exciting, I want in, but I have no idea what the heck a Grid 2.0 actually looks like in my backyard. Well, this is not a spectator sport anymore. Every state, every utility is racing to solve this problem differently, which means there are different opportunities depending on where you live and what you already know how to do. We're hosting a webinar on August 20th, 2026 to share what these opportunities are and how to pivot your career towards the biggest, most consequential infrastructure project ever taken on. So reserve your spot right now. A link is in the show notes. This has been the SolarPunkPro podcast. I'm James Vanzer. I'll see you on the next one.